Hello and welcome to Medals and Mics with me, Derval and Rob.
With me, David Gillick.
Myself, Rob Heffernan.
This podcast looks inside the life of us trying to be our best on a global stage.
Like all great journeys, it didn't always go to plan, yet the lessons learned can be applied to everyday life.
Every week we'll talk about winning major medals, Olympic Games, new challenges, our sporting careers and everything in between. Enjoy listening.
Thanks for being here.
We hope you enjoy listening.
I am going to crack on, lads. I'm going to crack on.
With Dave.
Compared to me.
It's been too many years.
That happens though when you're working closely with someone, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Emotions get mixed up.
Yeah.
I knew it was going to happen, you see.
You're too touchy-feely for this couch.
Yeah.
Rob, Hansi Heffernan, no thanks.
In our next series, we'll go on what really happens in the village.
Yeah. That's what everyone wants to know.
Wait, did you see the outtakes from this?
The dirt of the Olympic Village. Okay, so speaking of Olympic villages and all things life chasing Olympic dreams and sports dreams, we are all very retired now from that world. So we're not retired from life, we're actually retired from sport. And I am curious, I find this fascinating.
Dave is a 3-hour marathon runner now, sub
259, Rob.
Sub
He's a
259.
sub 3 hour. I'm curious about how life has looked on the other side of, because it's such an intense, unusual journey. It is like, people, unless you're in it, it's very hard to explain it to people. So I'm going to kick it off. It's like, how do you choose your favourite child between the two of you? I'm going to kick it off with you. Not because you're my favourite, but because, it depends on the day with both of you.
Just move it along, Derval.
Okay, I'm going to kick it off with you mainly because you've talked a lot about the transition, and I suppose I'm retired now. Just to put in context, I retired exactly 10 years ago. How long are you retired?
11.
You're 11 years officially retired.
Yeah, when I stepped away from elite level athletics.
11 years.
7.
And you're 7 years retired. I think you need 5 or 6 years to process it.
Jesus, yeah.
I do. So I think when people retire and they ask them straight away how they feel. I was at an event with a rugby player recently, and he was retired 6 months, and people were asking him how it is, and I was in my head going, he has no clue yet. No. He has no clue yet. But okay, David Gillick, you retired, you stepped away. Would it be right? You stepped away. You were disappointed. Things hadn't worked out the way you wanted them to. I remember that a lot at the time. What happened next? How did you feel?
Yeah, pretty much like you have this dream that you're gonna do everything you want to do, and then you're gonna call it a day and retire. And for me, it was like go to Beijing, go on to London, and go to Rio, and then retire on my terms. I made one Olympics, and I missed London through injury, and then I was in Australia. In 2013, got myself back into really good shape, preparing for a race in Japan, and then I hurt my Achilles. And after having maybe 3 seasons where I hadn't raced, so I tore my soleus, I tore my calf, I did everything. Got myself back into shape, boom, it happens again. And I had no money. In one phone call went from the top level of karting, which was €40,000 to 0 in one phone call. I had no sponsors. It was costing me money. And I was now 30. And people might think, that's still young. In athletic terms, in sprinting terms, it's not. The reality for me was that I wasn't enjoying what I was doing. I just wanted to move on with the rest of my life. And I thought I could at the time. You hang up, you retire, the spikes go on the wall, boom, I'm done. And I can remember vividly going back from the track when I was in Canberra and having a bit of a meltdown, just literally having a tantrum because I was hurt again, and I'm done with this. And Charlotte was with me. Literally the next day, I had an email from a production company in Dublin, asked me did I want to do Celebrity MasterChef, and so I was like, fuck it, I'm doing nothing else. I'm not running, not competing. So I came back to Dublin, and that's the reason I came back to Dublin initially. Okay. Charlotte didn't come back with me. She was working for a Canberra Raiders rugby league team in Australia. Came back by myself, and I did that for that summer, and that filled that void. The hardest part was then in September, because that's when I'd go back training. and I wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I kind of the realization of like, oh, things are really different now. And I didn't know what to do. And that's the honest truth. I had no clue. And I think we can all kind of relate to having your plan. What does the year look like? Right, you're back into training. What's the goal? It's a Worlds, an Olympics, the Europeans. And you're bought into that and away you go. This September, it wasn't happening. And I think the identity then that came with my athletics, you know, I was a runner. That's who I was. And that's what people, oh, there's the runner,
course,
there's the runner. And that's what I kind of just got very used to. And then suddenly that's gone. You know, and then it's the questions of like, well, what are you doing now, Gillick? What are you up to? What are you going to do? Oh, you could do this, you could do that. And you're kind of just playing along going, oh, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. I had no clue. I had absolutely no clue. And I had no money. And I panicked. I panicked. And I got caught in that scenario where if I have more money, I'll be happy. That's going to fill the void. So I jumped at the first job that came my way, working for a sports brand. And just jumped straight into that and thought, okay, this is going to fix everything. And like, worst thing I could have done, because I was by myself. My direct team and manager were over in the UK, and I was in Ireland by myself. I was traveling in the car by myself, and I completely went away from athletics. I hated athletics. I absolutely resented it, and I wasn't talking.
You barely talked to me during that. I remember reaching out to you a couple of times just to shoot the breeze and have the crack, and you wouldn't come back. Yeah. I just didn't.
It was just hard. I was hurt. You know, I was hurt from the sport. Yeah. I was like, why the fuck did the sport do this to me?
That personal.
You know what I mean? Like, and everything. And like, you know, you get cut from funding. Oh, why is he doing that to me? Oh, just everything kind of just exploded. Death. It's a death.
Yeah.
And it took me a long time to realise that. It took me a long time to understand that I was grieving over a loss of identity, because everything came, and you said it in one of our previous episodes about like, all my self-worth and confidence came from athletics. And
you do say that an athlete dies twice.
An athlete dies twice. And I can remember going like, oh, I'll go for a run, and like leaving the house that we were renting in, and I ran about like 2k, and I just stopped and I was like, what the hell am I doing? I walked home. And I just I threw myself into the job. I hated sport, hated running, just I began comfort eating. I couldn't sleep because I was so stressed. I was so stressed about like, you get a job, you get a bit of money, and it's like you're still not happy.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't processing what I was going through. I didn't talk to anybody. I didn't talk to, like, even when I think back to like the people like who could probably relate to what I was going through, I didn't talk to, and I didn't want to talk to. And I just removed myself from friends and family. I used to hate when like the lads would be on, "Are you coming out? You know, come on, we'll go for a few pints and stuff like that."
And it's hard because of something that you loved so much. When it starts to go like that, it's everything.
It was everything. And I think the hard part was that it wasn't on my terms. And then I regretted the decisions. Why did I go to America? Why did I do? You're an idiot. You're an idiot. Why didn't you back yourself? You know, that's kind of, you're always arguing, and there's those two voices. And it was the negative voices just getting louder and louder. I think that was the hard part. And then like, you know, just watching other athletes as well, that used to drive me crackers, like, you know, because I could relate to all that, you know.
But did you outside the Achilles getting hurt, like, did a lot of it come? Did you still feel if you weren't injured that you still had the motivation and the drive and the talent to be at the top, that your body was still capable of being really quick?
I hated my body. Like that,
because it was failing you.
Because it was failing me. And when I hurt the Achilles, I did like whole 3 months of like rehab. I was in Australia, did everything on the Alta G, got back to 100% the Alta G, and then hopped onto the track. And anytime when I literally got into a sprint position, got low and tried to drive, just flared up again. And it just like, that was probably the final crux of it, was like, I just can't do this. Yeah. So it was forced upon you. It wasn't your decision. So And then it was just like, you know, I always had this thing when I was kicking off, when I made my decision to relocate over to Loughborough. I made a promise with myself that I wasn't going to get to the age of 30 and look back and go, what if? And now I was 30. And I was like, right, you've done. And at the time, to be honest with you, I was like, okay, I can move on. I've won a few things. I've ran fast. I've got sprinted to a certain level. Right, okay, I can move on. But it kind of goes back to that point, like, you know, when they're asking that rugby player, like, how are you getting on? Like, I thought I could easily just go, yeah, this is grand, you know, I'm going to move on to the rest of my life. But it was the harsh reality of waking up, and I can remember going into the office in Warrington, where the company I was working for was based, and to put it frankly, nobody really gave a shite what event I did or what level I got to.
That's hard as well, isn't it?
Nobody cared. I can remember going down, and I just done MasterChef, and going into a few of the retailers, and it wasn't about my running. It was about MasterChef.
Yeah.
Tell you what, we'll do an in-store evening, and you can flip a few pancakes.
Yeah.
Like fuck,
It's
I can remember
mind
driving
blowing.
down to Newcastle West on a wet Tuesday, and probably about maybe 20 people in the store, and me flipping pancakes, trying to flog a few pairs of trainers.
It's mad, isn't it?
And then hopping in the car and driving 3 hours home. Like the thought process in your head is just what has happened.
And I think for you, for someone who hasn't been in sport at a high level, that would be like going from being the boss of a massive
Right back down to the
organization
start. Yeah.
Well,
right down to answering the phones and then being put in a car. Not that there's nothing wrong with
No.
either job, but it's like
It's just
you
the
work so
difference.
hard to get so
Yeah.
high, and then you feel so
And it
low.
was like
I was
2
through.
weeks.
I was through that at earlier parts of my career, and probably in my sense, my Achilles got fixed, and I was able to keep going. So I've been through all of that, and I because I was lucky, I ended on my own terms, which is
Do you think that helped you with transitioning into
Yeah.
other things?
because I.
So did
when
you
I-
know the day was coming? Did you
Yeah,
know? Okay.
I knew I was out in Guadix training one year, and Stephen Macklin, a good friend of mine, I coached him when he was younger, and he's doing brilliant work now. He was head coach in the Aspire Academy out in Doha. He was coaching Dara McElhinney, and they would come away in my camps as well. And Dara was only a young fella, 2017, and I was just... After I won the Worlds, went on a couple of things out. I finished 5th in World Championships then in Beijing. I was 6th in the Olympic Games in Rio, and I fucking should have, I was good enough to win a medal there. And you know what? I shaved my head the day before the race, and I got badly sunburnt, and I was massively dehydrated. And I was so professional with everything.
It's wild that you did that at that
I
stage
know,
of your career because you were switched off. Your brain was a bit switched off.
Maybe I just didn't have my razor with me on camp, and that my head wasn't adapted to the sun. But look, but I knew there was a difference. I even remember being in the group and just knowing that animal. I was just starting to get nearly more mature and more educated with stuff, and not as feral for competition. And then I says, I'll go to London and I'll do everything right. I still finished 6th in the Olympics, still good. So my funding's still a 40 grand. I have 10 grand for a coach. It's good money, isn't it? For tax free.
Yeah.
So you could plan your year. You've sponsors coming through. I'm doing well. And I went to London, and I finished 7th in London, and I did everything to a T professionally, but I had no feeling or emotion for it. I financially know I'm okay. So it's gone the complete flip of where I was at the start. I'm after buying a house. I have a house with no mortgage, which was incredible because my dad still lives in a council house. Bought my own house. Now I've got okay money. I was still on really good funding. And I was like, I don't love this anymore.
The bite was gone.
I'm
I
different.
interviewed after that.
You did. So sorry, Dave, to go back. So I always remember one of the nails in my coffin was I did my session in Guadix one year, and I was starting to just feel different, not as driven, but I would still do all my work. And I went down and watched Dara doing a session on the track, and I recognised watching him, he was a fucking animal. And it was the first time in all of my life
It's like the circle
I
of life.
admired somebody else. Because I didn't care about no one. Like I remember in London in the 20k when the Russian mounted at me, he was like going, you open your mouth to me again, boy, I'm going to hop you clean off the barrier. But you have that aggression. Because they go, fuck, who do you think you are speaking to me? And you're just back from a drug ban. And then I looking at Dara and I'm going, he just impressed me some. And then it was a part of me that was dead. And I went on, and even in the race, I delivered it kind of
Dara
professionally.
At the time, Darren was
hopefully-
an up-and-coming junior athlete.
Yeah.
Who was just coming into the sport.
I
and
was
you were
drawn
at the
to
other
him.
end.
I was at the end. And we were both the exact same size, same weight. And I was drawn to... And such a lovely young fella.
Lovely
the
guy.
nicest young fella. But when he was competing and when I seen him training, and I loved that because there was
dog
no
in him.
toxic masculinity about it.
It was pure form.
It was pure. And I was watching him and I was like, oh man, this is... And then when I got to London, I always remember coming through the line at London and I threw my arms in the air and somebody gave me an Irish flag, which I completely disagree with. People getting Irish flags without winning medals, I think is an absolute joke. No, I do. I think it's a joke because I grew up watching the greats, Mark Carroll, yourselves,
Earning the flags.
Sonia, Marcus O'Sullivan in the indoors, and you got the flag when you won a medal. That was the big draw. people getting a flag for having no medal.
Yeah.
Are you joking me? And there's a big picture of me with the flag. And I can always remember in my head at the time, and everyone was over photos, clapping. I was like, this is all an act.
Was this, and so this was
2017.
And you hadn't won a medal, but they gave you the flag.
I hadn't won a medal in
But
2017,
did
and
give you
they
the
gave me the
And
flag.
did you hold it?
Because it was just circumstantial. Do you know, you're
Well,
like,
you knew.
No, I was there at the finish.
yeah, I sure it was all wrong.
You were holding it, but you weren't.
Yeah, there was
have
nothing.
it
It was
close.
like apologetic. It was like, this is awful.
Yeah.
And then I was interviewed. You my last ever sports interview was with you, and even I knew because Ian O'Riordan interviewed me in Rio, and I was like, no, I can be better. I could have won in the medal today, and there was still that bite afterwards. And then when I interviewed, I just felt sad.
Yeah.
And I don't know, did I read off you? You kind of knew, and it was a weird
Well, I don't
moment.
think I asked you the question.
Yeah, because you probably knew, and I knew
Because I know you, and I was like, you know...
I was different.
I think sometimes people jump in with that question, you know, because they're
Yeah.
looking for the
bite.
headline
They're
and the
looking for the
bite,
same
whereas knowing you and...
Yeah.
But you know what, Dave? I went full circle. Like I had to fight so much for everything when I was younger. And now imagine the conundrum that I'm after being put into. Working class boy, I know who owns his own house, who has money. I'm on top funding. And I think I'm the first Irish athlete in history on top funding to actually walk away from the sport. Pardon the pun. But you know what I mean? But to make that decision, to walk into nothing.
Yeah, you could
to
have
have no
going
job.
just to-
I could have kept going and
And lots of
bluffing
people
and
have,
said,
and
they
bluffed
have.
it over the years. Yeah, I didn't either.
And I've met with people, and I met with the CEO in athletics at the time, and they said, we'll give you a role in developing the sport, and we'll put your funding
remember
that's
all
there in.
this.
Got none of it. So I literally had no job. You came out of it with no
Did that
job.
scare you?
Yeah. And then like you, the opportunity to come and do Dancing with the
TV.
Stars and Mariam. So me and Mariam were away in Tenerife on holidays, and the call came through. Like, it was in the pipeline. Then the call came through. It was like, you're Dancing with the Stars. You can. I'm like, no, me. So I left Tenerife a day early and flew over, and I always remember meeting Emily. Like, beautiful.
partner.
Emily,
Yeah.
Emily Barker. And just fucking feeling so inadequate, like, and then when we went to dance studio, and when we go back to the lessons of athletics, like, I was so bad, and I could even feel the sense of disappointment off her, like, going, she thought she was going to get a big, glorious, beautiful Olympian, and she was just with this shadow of a man who, like, had
The soul ripped out.
and I couldn't do anything, like. And then Curtis, remember Curtis, who was in Love Island? He was going out with Emily at the time, and he was coming to help me, like.
Oh,
And I used to feel like there was something wrong with me. Do you know what I mean? So hard. So imagine coming like from
that.
But it was great because I had to go right back down to the bottom.
Figure it out.
Right back down to the bottom. And it was so overwhelming, like. And the journey I went on that, I pieced together from 20 years of athletics and applied it ultimately to doing the dancing and coming on. And then it helped me with everything else I moved into. And then I kind of realised, like, if you do have that drive, if you're passionate about doing anything, like, I wouldn't have won in the Parish Championships, and I ended up getting to like week 10 out of week 12, got better every single week, and I can remember I was living with Jake Carter and kind of going, Jake, I think I'm going to win this. Like, I says, we're not to fall out. I know you're better. Like, and I remember the last week doing a dance off with Erin McGregor, Conor McGregor's sister. And Emily was like, going, are you okay? And I was so nervous at the start. It's like going back to the start of our careers. As she gave out to me at the time, she said, you told me you weren't nervous the last year of your athletics, that the nerves were gone because you didn't care. So fucking snap out of it now. Focus. I mean, all right, girl, relax. And she was so tough. And then went to that and did a live dance off against Erin McGregor, thought I was going to win and didn't win, but didn't care because I did my best. And I was like, is this what life is? So if I find something that I want to do and I'm driven towards it, so there can be enjoyment after you retire.
Oh, 100%.
You know?
I think it takes the time though.
Yeah.
But it's interesting, it's like, from MasterChef to Dancing with the Stars.
And I knew you were saying that. I'd like,
and then like
and you were like Fittest Family.
So reality
TV.
all of us,
I know.
but it's funny. I was wondering, would we ever get onto this? All of us retired and ended up on television doing something. That's why we're medals and mics, because we just can't. We love to be behind a mic, in front of a mic, whatever. My ending was, I went to the London Olympics. I was disappointed. They hadn't done better. And again, back to your point, like when we were competing, the culture is different now about age. So back when we were competing, it was like once you hit 28, they're for us anyway.
Questions.
The questions
Fellas
start,
coming out with the side.
Oh.
Yeah.
The Grim Reapers on the
Grim
way.
Reaper, yeah. Once you hit 28,
What are you going to do?
what are you going to do?
Yeah.
What are you so once you hit
And when you and you remember Kevin Ancram was there with his funnel back then.
There
and
was a
regardless of your background, you fell someplace in the funnel where you were going to be throwing off funding anyway.
So this is what we would have gotten stuck in. So at the time, there was an approach to high performance management that no matter what you had done previously, once you hit a certain age, it was game over. Good luck and good night. And no matter how...
He was a tool as well.
I will not comment on that. No matter how well you're doing. So what happened to me was London, I did pretty all right. Like I did okay. And then I said, because everyone kept telling me I was so old. You're so old. I think I was around 30, 32, 30. No, I wasn't 32, I was 30 or 31.
You're what, a year on me?
Yeah, so like I was around the same, similar. And I said, you know what? Because I wasn't happy with London. I said, I'm going to go on to an indoors and win another medal. So I'd won 4 major medals. And I was like, I'm going to go on and win another to show him that funnel is wrong. So you can take that funnel and shove the funnel.
Shove it up your hole.
So I was there. I will not get stuck in his funnel. So I spent... So I spent 5 months on...
It'd be worse if she said it the other way around.
Fucking stuck.
So anyway, moving on from me being in his funnel, him being in my funnel, all the funnels, right? So I was like, I'm going to show now that this is incorrect. So I went off. I trained hard, but my Achilles was niggling at me, and I went to European Indoors and I won a medal, right? Yeah. And but I actually won a medal in a funny way. I came 4th by 100th. It was unbelievably close.
Well,
to the
you
line.
cut off funding then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I came 4th, and then they were like, "Oh, you actually only came 4th," and I was like, "But there was only 100th of a second between 2nd and 4th. Like, I'm pretty much still at a very high level, but that discussion wasn't on the table." So my Achilles was really, really sore. And I said, God, my Achilles is not good. And anyway, I kept training on my Achilles, kept training for the next few months. But because I hadn't quite gotten medal. But anyway, the girl who won it, turns out she tested positive. She had tested positive 2 weeks before the champs. She should never have been there racing. So I should have just been on the podium, right? So this all happened very quickly afterwards. So very quickly afterwards, I was like, I actually did win a medal. But now I have to wait for all the legal side of it for the medal to arrive. I ended up having Achilles surgery, massive Achilles surgery. 2013. And I was watching you. So like how we're all always intertwined. I was at home and I'd had surgery, and it was like, sorry now for anyone that gets a bit squeamish. It was all up. They basically slipped my Achilles straight up, and it was like, a stuffed pork steak. You get a pork steak and it's stuffed and it's sewed. You can see.
We're going to move into the cooking after this.
Yeah. But anyway, it was horrendous. My Achilles surgery was pretty rough. But I didn't, again, back to your point, you want it, because it's such a personal thing and the journey's been so big and such a big part of who you are, such a big part of your life, I think there's a real need to own some of the ending. So I was like, if I end now with my Achilles like a stuffed pork steak, like, it's not going to feel like it's not on my terms. So I decided, right, I'm going to rehab it back, and I'm going to do one more European champs next year. And I'm going to win a medal at that European champs. And I'm going to do a lap of honour. And I'm going to not tell anyone. And then I'm going to be finished. That was my plan. And my Achilles, they said it would take me 8 weeks to get back running. 6 months later, I still wasn't running. And it was really, really bad. I was in pain all the time. Like every day I'd wake up, and when you wake up, and I'd swing my feet out of the bed, and I'd have a moment where I'd go, please don't be pain. Please don't be in pain, because the pain impacted how I could train and trying to get back to finish out my career the way I wanted to finish it. So anyway, this went on, and I eventually did start to get back. And I remember one day we put hurdles out in the track, and I ran over hurdles for the first time in over a year, no pain. And I ran over the hurdles, and I got into the car, and there was nothing there. The bite was gone. And I was in the car, and I was like, I don't want to fight anymore, because to win major medals, to go to major championships, to be one of the best in the world, you're always fighting.
You're a bit of a prick, like.
You're fighting, like you're not like, it's not that, it's more that
hungry for
you're
it.
hungry, and there's an animal, there's a bit, and you want a bit of a fight, and you have a bit of a chip in your shoulder. And I got into the car, and I was like, it was like a balloon that someone had put a prick and all the air was gone. I was like, my body is fine. I can run over hurdles if I want to run over hurdles, and I don't want to anymore. The fight's done. And between that moment, I sat down, I told very few people, maybe 5 or 6 people. I probably didn't even tell you properly. And I announced that I was done. And it was the middle of the year, and which is unusual because most athletes wait to the end so they get the end of their funding. Yeah. So they've a few quid. They know they're retired, but they've a few quid to try and figure out a job. I did the opposite. I was like, if they want to cut off my funding now, if they don't respect the career I've had for 14 years and they want to cut my funding, they don't want to see me out to the end of the year, so be it. I want to walk away slightly on my own terms. So I walked away and I got the phone call, like the telephone call. I got the phone call within a week saying, God, have you got a bit of free time during the summer? Do you want to do Ireland's for this family? And I was like, I'm actually writing a cookbook and I'm doing other projects. But yeah, what else am I going to do? Bar doing Ireland's for this family. And it was interesting, like that transition into doing other things. I went into that and I'll never forget, right? And I don't know what your thoughts are on this. I'd be dead curious. When you come from our world, right, the Olympic sport world and professional sport and athletics in particular, athletics is very black and white. So you can't pretend the result was different, or you can't interpret the rules, or you can't, and it's also not entertaining. It was never entertainment for me, athletics. It was like, I loved that people got some joy from my career, but I loved it afterwards. I didn't love it when I was standing on a start line because that was too much pressure for me to take on. So I loved knowing afterwards that people were invested and engaged in it as people. Like, I loved that when I'd come home to Cork and someone would stop you in a garage and say, do you know, we stopped our dinner to watch you run at Europeans. I loved that, but I hated it beforehand because it felt too pressurised. But then I went into the world of like fittest family and telly because I had been in athletics for so long. I thought all the rules were the same. And we were there on the set and I'd never met like Davy Fitz. We didn't know each other. And I remember me and Davy were doing a race and I was there. Why is he not following the rules the way the rules are, the guidelines? And like, but sure, it was just like, this is telly. Yes, the races are the races, but like, it's back to that bit of GAA or a bit of rugby, like, you know, where you're kind of going, no ref, I didn't cut the corner, I didn't do this. And I remember getting in this massive argument with him and I was like, I need to talk to you. There was a rule and you did not follow the rule. And I think he just thought I was absolutely bananas. And I remember ringing Peter and Peter was like, you know, this is not the Olympic Games. Like, you're on a television show.
That mindset.
I still had that mindset. But I'd retired in June. This was August. And it was like back to you wanting to win Dancing with the Stars. Yeah. Right? I was like, I have to win for this family.
But it's always in your character. I think you just read
I'm more chilled now, but that was 10 years ago. Like, if you put me into any environment like that now, I'm way more like, I'd like to win. If I don't,
you're not
defined by it.
Nah.
But I think that's in you. But then you've the maturity to go, yeah, I feel like that. We always want to win, but you don't have the tools to back it up. I did the celeb version of, and Derval was my coach.
Yeah.
So there was me, Mary and Cahill and Megan, and the two kids were brilliant. Me and Mara retired, like. And
you took it very seriously.
Very seriously, because it comes
very
out
funny.
And I'm like, fuck it, I don't want to be dragged back in here because you don't have the tools to back it up then. Like, I pulling Marion through the bog at one time. I was like, can't fucking leave Brian Dolan on his husband beat us, like. We have to win this.
The telly.
Come on, they're on the telly. And she says to me after, you're not to speak to her like that again. And I'm there, it's fucking mild. I really want to say it.
Tell him to stop.
She had to tell me to stop. But so we went through the day. Jackie Hurley was there, all civil and polite. And then we got to at one stage, Dave, right? And Jackie was carted off in an ambulance.
Genuinely.
And my instinct, and I spoke to Jackie about this.
We laugh a lot.
We laugh about it now. And I was like going, if she dies, we're definitely into the final, like. And I'm mad about Jackie, like. And I said it to her, and you know what she says to me? And I said, fuck it, I feel bad about this. But it was an emotion, a feeling.
So you go to that dark place of like, when you're an athlete, you're like, if actually everything happens to someone else and I become the champion, so be it.
But Jackie says to me, she says, Rob, I remember interviewing Jackie Terrell one year, and he said, when they're winning with Kilkenny, he says, when you have the boys and their head is just underneath the water, you fucking shove it down another little bit. And you can totally relate to it. But not when you don't have the tools to back it up, when you're a normal person.
And you're just on a television show for entertainment for children on a Sunday night.
Like, we were at the end, so it was me against Jackie's family and and we got on really nice all day now, really civil. Cahill was there and he turned around and he goes, you're fucked now, Heffernans, you're going to be too small to get over the wall. And Cahill looked at me and he goes, Dad, come on. And then I goes, why didn't you just fucking leave me alone now? He goes, you're Russians to me now, like. Because there was 10 grand up for grabs.
For charity, 10 grand for charity.
And we went back to the caravan and we stayed there and we're back full competition. But I didn't like being back there.
Did you win?
No.
We won it.
Of course they won.
But it was fucking full on, man. Like, it was 10 grand for the Rainbow Club, but there was a load of jeopardy there. But I didn't enjoy it. I really didn't enjoy being back there again. I was
No.
like, I don't
Well,
like this.
It shows that
It's hard to get back there when you've been there for so
it's
long.
the way you're wired as well, though.
It's the way you're wired, but you
mad
know
though.
you don't have the work
You
to
don't
back
have the- you don't
up
have the
that
tools.
person.
Yeah.
And it's like, but then there was so much.
Yeah.
But also the environment's the incorrect environment to be putting it into. Like, I remember literally standing behind a television truck and saying to David Fitz, I need to have a word with you. Like, I'm not happy about this now. And then being like, oh my God, I'm ridiculous. I'm a ridiculous person. What is wrong with me? You know,
It
but
was so highly strung.
You're
It
highly
takes a
strung.
while.
Well, like MasterChef is the exact same.
was
Yeah.
it? I went on.
You're waiting to go in to say the studio,
Yeah.
like, and I'm nervous. I'm like,
Yeah.
My hands are sweaty. It's like call room, you know,
Yeah.
before a race. But I loved it.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that, you know, because I think when you have that little element about you, you'll do well.
But did you enjoy it because, just say, even in that world, that you knew you were kind of half prepared? Because I had this with Dancing with the Stars. When it came to the last few weeks, it would go completely toxic. People would be trying to mess with you. I fucking loved it. I love seeing people crack.
Yeah.
Because like going, we just do our own thing, Emily.
Yeah.
We're getting better. And it was, but it's life, it's human nature.
But I think the things that I took away from that was the fact of, like, you know, you're resourceful in ways, you're a quick learner, and those are things that you probably
to survive.
learned
Yeah,
in your athletic kind of career, that, you know, actually there is things, because I think when I retired I didn't know what I was good at. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I didn't know.
Or the things you were good at, you probably take them for granted.
You do,
Totally.
yeah.
Can I ask something that I'm curious about? All three of us now work in telly on athletics. And I think, like, how we work in different roles. So myself and Rob are generally in studio doing analysis. You're generally trackside and reporting. And they're very different roles.
Yeah.
People think they're the same, but they're different roles in terms of, like, we're employed to sit there, watch athletes compete, and we used to be those athletes, and then give a critical analysis and an opinion on the performance. But you're kind of employed to draw the story out of the athlete and get a reaction from the athlete. So I suppose to start with you, like, how do you enjoy that role now as a former athlete? And because you've had a bit more time away.
Yeah, it took me a couple of years. I think I had that rawness that, like, again, career ending, not really on my terms. There was still an element of me that wanted to be out there. You know, so when you're given the job to go and report on athletics, and
Did you find it hard? Because I used to think about this when you were trackside, especially. Do you find it hard when you've an athlete coming up, and we all know when their approach and when they're not being genuine and their standard is really low and they're chatting shit?
Yeah, and
Like, do you, and because you were such a high performer, how can you adapt your personality to actually be able to come down to that person and be
it's a good
emphatic?
point, because
I
it is
feel
hard.
for you when I
It
was
is hard.
watching
And
it.
initially kind of I struggled with that kind of, I still wanted to be out there, and your kind of emotions are kind of, you know, a little bit high. And it wasn't until a couple of years, I think it was the Europeans, what was it, 2018 or something in Berlin?
Berlin was 2018.
That was the first time I actually felt comfortable in the mix zone. And it's hard because sometimes from the level that, say, I was at, an athlete might come off after not performing well and they're smiling. And you're kind of like...
So when you're asking when you're asking them questions that you 100% know the answer to, how do you find that?
But you just have... See, it's not...
What do you view?
I remove myself from the situation.
Okay.
What do you view as your job in that moment?
So I'm the medium, right? They're not talking to me. They're talking to the people at home, their friends,
viewer.
their family, their viewer, people who are probably only turning on athletics for the first time, you know, that year.
So who told you this? Did you figure this out yourself? Did you?
No training, like.
Yeah, I know. This it is interesting, like, because you were thrown in there.
You're thrown into it, yeah. The best piece of advice, actually, I was at an indoors, I can't remember, one of the European indoors, and Phil Jones, who was the BBC reporter for years.
Super guy.
And he would have interviewed us all,
Yeah,
right?
super.
And he was standing beside me with BBC and chatting to him and stuff like that. And then I was like, oh, Phil, any advice? And he said, don't plan. I was like, what? And he goes,
like that.
don't plan. And I go, what do you mean by that? And he said, when I started off this, I used to plan everything.
Yeah.
I'd look at the runners and riders and I'd say, right, so-and-so, this, that and the other. And then someone false started.
Yeah.
And his whole, like, all his prep work had fallen
Yeah.
apart. And he said, I learned a lesson there. Know your event and know the general overview, but don't plan too much because you don't know what the result might be. And that was great advice. And for me, I view myself as, like I said, the medium. It's not about me. It's about them.
So ultimately, when you come back to it then, and we've had this in studio, like when I started with Dirt, like I was so nervous doing the European Indoors that time, and you were brilliant to me. And I think you build up massive trust when you're at such a vulnerable stage, at whatever stage of life, because everyone's going to be vulnerable. It's the people working with you. It's only months down the road you'll realise, did they throw me under the bus or with the support? And that builds a massive trust. But the amount of stats books that would be thrown at us.
Oh,
and we're like, when you pull it back, like we're commenting on stuff that we've done all our life and what we see.
Yeah.
So
and that's where
it's having that balance,
it's
isn't
having
it?
the balance. And I always try and think about the people back home who don't know 11 seconds, don't know 44 seconds. They're looking at pictures on the TV. So they want to know the basics. They may not know the sport, but they're looking at the competition and the excitement of it all. And what I always try and do is, and I have the beauty of being in the stadium, I look at the body language of an athlete. The minute they cross the line, you read it.
Yeah.
And you know there and then, and that will dictate the first question, whether it's going to be, happy or sad. And I don't look for tears. I don't try and squeeze it out of them, I let them speak. And thankfully some of the athletes are good talkers. And if they view their performance to be fantastic, who
are you to?
Even if you know different. Because
But I think that's why Gilly's role is a bit different to our role in that.
And you're analysing. You're
but it's never personal, because we've got a lot. Like we could get a lot of negative, roasted. And you're trying to promote the sport in a positive light to the public as well.
Yeah.
This is what I always find interesting about that job is, so like people, if you break it down, right, there's a presenter who's normally Peter Collins. So you've a presenter in the chair, they've got someone in their ear, so they've people up in a room who are doing production. I presume Peter's talking to someone up there, right? So he's got someone in his ear. Then myself, Rob, and generally Sonia are there. Red light comes on. So it's back to the preparation. You have to prep the event a bit. Like
we would, which we do always. We
do always prep the event, so you know what's going on in the event. You kind of know what the athletes have done leading into it. But the thing is, you can't prep the result. As Phil Jones, just don't plan for that. And I suppose when it comes to us in the studio, I feel like our job is to story tell the sport, to make it interesting for the people at home. So my friends who are not necessarily athletics nerds, I think they need to understand the story, and we need to be able to explain it.
And then there's a balance as well, because you have to be pure into the sports purist, that you're not watering yourself down completely, that you have to give some analysis of performance and where they should be at, and that not everybody is great. But it's never personal. Because I used to always remember, like Jory Kiernan, when I was competing, if something negative came back, you could
take it off.
Sure, Jory wouldn't even remember. He would only be saying it at the time, and obviously I became good friends with him. He was at my wedding, and
same.
But it was never. It's very hard to realise when we're in our insular worlds. It's never, ever, ever personal, or it's never premeditated, as you say. It's not planned.
No.
And it's also, I think a point that's really important is the respect we'd have for every athlete for just being there.
Oh yeah, and more so now. When you come out the other side, it's like, oh man, like and when you have kids and stuff, so you're conscious of that.
Like I never take it for granted that an athlete has managed to get themselves to a start line.
But then saying that, Derv, right? I think, and I did, when you have the lads that decided, when you have moved up to the standards that we have been at, you need to be asked the hard questions then, because you are professional, you are accountable to yourself, and you have no bother being able to come back with a response, whether it's good or bad.
At the end of the day.
I suppose the guys, you're probably going to be nicer to the guys who've just made it, as opposed to the real high performers.
It's evident, like if
you're more you're more analytical to, if you have an athlete who's going in, say if you have someone who's going in levels, who's going in as a medal chance.
Yeah.
And they don't make it out of the first round, which has happened to all of us when we've gone in as medal chances, things have gone wrong, don't make it out of the first round. You will do more critical analysis of that. Because they're compared to a kid who's just out of the junior ranks, who's going for a bit of exposure, or who's got to be exposed at that level. And we all know by looking at them, they're like a deer in headlights. And your biggest hope for them is they learn from the experience. So there is a bit of that, but I think it's, as a job, do you enjoy it as a job?
I love it, yeah. I'd be driving back down from Dublin afterwards, and I'd ring my manager, Derry, and I'd be going, this is unreal. I love athletics, and I'm actually getting paid to talk about it on TV. Like, there'd be no one watching them anyway. Like, I would do this for free, you know? I do. I love
it. Edit that out. Yeah. We will not do the coverage.
All legit payments, no, by the way.
Yeah, it is, and that's the other side of it. Like, I think for us, the privilege of getting to sit in that seat.
I love it, yeah.
Stand on the track and watch.
I'd be the first person that they talk to after probably some of the biggest moments in their life. And I think one thing that struck me over the last couple of years is watching the impact a performance has to the people who are trackside.
Yeah.
Their friends, their family, their parents.
Yeah. You can take that in, though.
You know, to be honest, I never really took in when I was competing because you're so in the zone. But watching how something on the track can literally bring someone on the sideline so much joy is... Like, that's the stuff you kind of go, that's sport, that's brilliant. In its live form.
And it is amazing to get there. It's amazing, like, you know, it's... And
I have moments in studio where I have to take a few seconds because it would make you emotional. And it's not even the obvious moments. It's not even actually the joyful ones a lot of the time. It's often when you can see how much a performance hurts somebody because we've all been there and you're going... Like, Jesus.
Well, you can just relate.
You can relate.
Yeah, of course.
And I do. And I think, you know, I suppose that's, you know, why you'll always come back to going, you've so much respect for what they're doing. We have to try and...
But I think the analysis, it's always coming from a good place.
Always from
a
good place.
And you're not, I don't think any of us would go down the route throwing out negative stuff for clickbaits or for likes or just because you see people reporting, just saying negative stuff for the sake of it without having any solutions. Yeah. You know?
Yeah, and you see that in mixed zone as well. You see kind of aggressive reporters and people who are looking for the angle and stuff like that, you know. And look, maybe at sometimes that's warranted. Maybe there is of course tough questions to be asked. But I think, like, from my perspective, it's a privilege to still be involved.
But on that note, right, when we're analysing athletes and chatting to them, who are you most excited about seeing in Paris?
Well, it's Rashid Adelecki for me, 400 metres. The event I used to run, I think it's going to be exciting.
She's phenomenal, lads.
I think, and I hate to put her under more pressure, and we're going to end this week's episode on this because it's a good place to end. I think she could be the greatest Irish sports person of all time.
But I think she's the most talented already of all time. And you know what I love about her? Like, and to be fair, you never lost your accent, and your accent has been always posh since I know you.
I've always been, as my mother would say, it's important to be very well spoken, Robert. And my mother...
Are you trying to imply Derval?
My mother used to make me practice answering
This is my posh voice. But I love that she has her thick Dublin accent, even though she's still over in America training with all the lads. Yeah. And, you know, and she's... my girls love her. Daff
saw her on the cover.
She transcends Ireland though, doesn't she? Like, with how good she
sport,
like
she just,
the 10.85 she ran with the wind. Like, when we think back to sports stars and when people go on about men and women, when you just go back to athletic freaks, Jonah Lomu only ran about 10.8. They're going on about him being the fastest man on the planet. Or Mbappe, like, she's faster than these guys, like.
She's unbelievable.
You know what I mean? It's unbelievable, like, you know?
We're excited, but we're going to have to come back and talk about them.
Yeah, but I hope she does well. And look, there's loads. We've loads to be excited
about.
Well,
collectively, I think it's
collectively we've a really strong team
going to Olympics across all sport. We've multiple world, European champions. We've probably never had that across so many.
Yeah, we've the rowers,
boxers,
the gymnasts, swimmers. Yeah,
it's in a good place.
Yeah, it's going to be a good. How many? 2 weeks.
It's in a few weeks.
No, it'll be a good 2 weeks, the games.
Oh, it will be a good 2 weeks. And we'll get to sit there and watch and have the chat. So,
analyse it.
Drink wine.
Until next time, my friends, this has been a lot of fun. Thank you.